What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the AWAKEN Catholic Show. I am your host, Nick De La Torre, and today we have a very deliciously comfortable episode for you. We're going to be talking about Sacrilegious and much more with the creators of Sacrilegious. And if you don't know what Sacrilegious is, it's a play on the word sacrilegious, but it's like socks that you wear that are religious. All of that is coming up right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the AWAKEN Catholic Show. This is not your grandmother's Catholic talk show, unless she's a really, really cool grandmother. Scott and Elisabeth Williams, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Great.
Great. How are you, Nick?
I am doing marvelously well, even better. Now that I'm talking to you, I have two pairs of Sacrilegious, and I love wearing them. I love the questions I get about them. And, am I wearing my pants extra high when I wear them specifically so that people notice? Maybe, but don't worry about it. Do you guys wear your own socks?
Almost exclusively, yeah.
I'm glad that was your answer. When there was a pause, I was worried that I caught you oh crap, no, we don't wear our socks.
We just did kind of like a purging of our house and closet, and we threw away a lot of secular socks in the process. But even some of our older socks. But yeah, we almost exclusively wear them.
Yeah, and I we had the longer ones, like the one size fits most ones, and those are just, I would get a little too hot. So now that we have their no-show socks,
okay,
I'm much more comfortable in those personally. So yeah. I'm pretty much exclusively in the shorter ones unless I'm cold.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check out those no-show socks because that's actually the kind of thing I usually wear. Actually, mine are like ankle-less socks, not quite no-show, but I'm gonna have to check out your inventory to go beyond the two that I have right now. Yeah, it's so funny to me. You mentioned the term secular socks, and you used that term with me before we started recording, and I just started chuckling inside because it's like I've never considered my socks to have any the nature of being secular. Like that's just really hilarious to me. Sacrilegious, it's everywhere. Everyone's rocking Sacrilegious. How does it feel to be the people that are creating the stuff that is on like every serious Catholic's feet?
It feels like we're the owners of the world's largest Catholic sock company.
I bet it's more than a feeling.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear the story of how that got started. But it really is, it's become ubiquitous. I mean, every major Catholic organization and company that, provides merchandise and one of the things they offer is socks, they're pretty much always from Sacrilegious. That's kind of, you're kind of a big deal.
I mean, it's been a joy to see it grow over the years, but yeah, I mean, it's awesome to work with some of the companies that we've just looked up to over the years, and they want to have not only like a sock to represent their brand, but they want a Sacrilegious sock to be part of their lineup. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me as a user of your apparel, as a wearer of your apparel, I honestly do get asked, what is your sock about? I've had some Protestants be like, oh, that's a nice sock. And then I'll tell them, yeah, it's a rosary. And they're like, oh. But it's so fun to me to have conversation starters like that. If you don't want to go to the extremes of getting tattoos like I have a Benedict medal on my arm, and I can't tell you the number of times I get asked, what's that tattoo about? And I tell them, it's this amazing medal that's used in crucifixes that are used in exorcisms. And I go and I tell them about the story of how it was discovered and what the prayer, the Vade Retro Satana prayer means. And it's so epic. If you want to stop short of getting tattoos, wear Sacrilegious.
Exactly.
I mean, it's honestly the reason that we exist and that we keep on doing what we're doing, because I mean, we like to say that Sacrilegious, we create products that start we make joyful products that start conversations. Because I worked full time in Catholic youth ministry for about 10 years, and I realized that one of the most difficult parts of the evangelization process is just starting the conversation. And once you get past that hump, everything else, just God takes over. It's in our hands, and we're able to go from there.
It's so true. And you never know, if you're having that conversation, maybe at a restaurant. I've been at restaurants, and whether it's my tattoo or something else that they notice, what's that about? that may be the only conversation you ever have with that person, but like it could plant a seed of interest or curiosity or new openness that may have rippling effects in their lives. And you may never see the outcome of that, but God is using it in some way. And so I love that about what you guys are doing. You know, and I've worn the stuff here on the show a couple of times, you know. I think it's kind of a fun little Easter egg when I wear pants that are cut a little bit high, like the ones I'm wearing right now, although I'm wearing boots without my sacrilegious socks. I forgot them today. But, you know, it's also fun. Like, who doesn't enjoy fun socks? Like, they look cool. They're not just like, I am Catholic. Like, they look stylish. They look fun, colorful. And a lot of the different models are so different. Like the one that I have, I think is more of like a bluish purplish with like burgundy accents, and that's the rosary one. And then I have another one that's like brown and yellow. Yeah, I mean, are you guys making these designs?
We are not.
Not the two of us.
Scott made the first sketch of the first design, and actually our creative director, who at the time was a nice friend, helping out. She's now our creative director, and she's been with us the whole journey. She and her team create these incredible images, and we've made stickers from them, and it's just incredible what they can create and how they can make something come to life, like just a story.
Yeah, and there's so many nuances that people might not even see. Like, for example, the St. Joseph sock. It has like one of those typical Argyle patterns in it that you'd see on a nice dress sock, but the St. Joseph's carpenter square is in every notch of it. Or like on the bottom of that one specifically, there's just empty quotation marks, which usually we put like a quote from the saint that's famous, but St. Joseph never said anything. So there's just empty quotes. But also
empty quotes.
As our personality, our sense of humor, but it gives people talking points too. So that's a nice little.
Yeah. Amen. So you guys, like, this whole sacrilegious thing has spun out of control. I mean, it's become, you have now like a parent company with like all these subsidiaries and these different lines of ministry and creation and apparel, different types of things that you guys are creating. And I want to get into all of that. But first I want to start talking about the two of you. So what is your relationship to each other, and how did you meet?
Married.
We're married.
So we met at a super Catholic event, so we were both invited to the like Archdiocese of Indianapolis pro-life fundraiser dinner thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a pity invite because they canceled the March for Life trip that I had just moved back into Indy and wanted to get involved in. So I was a pity invite, and he was a seat filler.
Yep. I worked at the diocese and they needed to put another butt in a seat. So I got invited, and we got sat at the same table. I bought was it Coors Light? Bought her a couple of Coors Lights, and the rest is history.
Yep.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But the beautiful thing of it was like, that's the physical place that we met, but we were both on this journey, like separately in different areas of the city. But we both just at that time said, all right, we're going to focus on Jesus. We're going to run to Jesus in the Eucharist. And in a way, like us kind of putting down, breaking down a lot of the barriers coming from different places in life, met there physically. But I feel like in a certain way, like through the Eucharist before that.
Yeah, that's always, for people that are already, if you're watching or listening to this and you're already someone that identifies as like a faithful Catholic, like you're pursuing to the best of your ability, albeit imperfectly, you're pursuing the Lord and you're trying to be faithful to the church that he created. If you're single and you're trying to find the right person, like the best thing is to just run towards Jesus, and you can look to either side. And if you see someone running nearby, also running towards Jesus, that person is probably not a bad fit.
Yep.
It's hard when it's not that way. When one of the people are pursuing the Lord, like that's a really tough place to be. So on the note of pursuing the Lord, a lot of people are not. And maybe someone watching or listening to this right now is not. And they're like, what the heck are they talking about? And why should I pursue the Lord and whatever? And, to me, that's where the Kerygma speed round is important. You guys ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. So question number 1, who is Jesus to you? Each of you take a turn.
So to me, Jesus is, obviously the Redeemer. Jesus was sent into the world to save us for our sins. And the beautiful thing about Jesus is he walks with us on the journey wherever we are. So no matter what the path, the direction that you're heading, Jesus will come to you in that space, put his arm around you, and walk with you. But that doesn't necessarily mean he'll keep walking in the same direction you are, but he'll turn you around, put you in the right direction, and lead you closer to him and to his church.
Beautiful. Amen. Elisabeth?
Is that lightning enough?
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
Most people end up just totally ignoring the whole notion of lightning round.
We're rule followers.
Yeah. So I mean, we're all still on our journey of like what true intimacy looks like. For a while, I thought he was a friend or a distant like guy. And now all I know is that life is sweeter and better with him in relationship than without. It doesn't mean anything's like easier or less crappy, but it does make it sweeter. And I used to do a lot of improv, and he does always bring back like anything difficult that you've had. He brings it back and uses it for good. Being those things come back of like, I thought that was lost, or I thought that was just silly. And he says, no, I know you. And I bring this back, and I anoint it. I make it better.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And we're going to come back to the whole you doing improv thing later. But question number 2 of the Charisma Speed Round, elevator pitch for a life with Jesus.
You want to go first?
That's I'm going to use the same thing.
Reframe it. You have the length of an elevator to sell someone on Jesus, a life with him. Let's hear it.
Life with Jesus it's dynamic. The colors are brighter. There's consolation. There's places of rest along the journey.
Beautiful.
Beautiful meadow.
Yep.
No. I would say that the word that comes to mind specifically is freedom. Life with Jesus is free. I think a lot of times when people look at the rules of the church and all the different teachings and everything else, it can look like we're being drawn into this jail cell where you have to live in these rules by these terms at this time or else. But the true world of freedom that comes with living a life with Jesus means that you get to be the person that you were created to be. You get to live freely. You get to be just everything that God made you to be. And there's so much freedom in living within that context and of that church, because what's the alternative? It's just, putting yourself up against the competition. It's, worrying about other people, but in this world of freedom, you just get to be you.
Yeah, I love it. Amen. You get to be the you that was intended by the man that made you, by the God that made you.
Right.
That's beautiful. All right. Final question of the Charisma Speed Round. You kind of touched on it there towards the end, Scott.
Yeah.
Elevator pitch for life specifically as a Catholic.
Specifically as a Catholic, there's just the beauty of the fullness of the church. It's not easier. It's not the path of least resistance, but it's the one that God created for us, and it's the gift of the Eucharist, Himself truly present as a gift, is Him fully alive. It's the church fully alive as a Catholic. Everything else is just watered down in some capacity.
Beautiful. How about you, Elisabeth?
The sacraments, and I mean, where else does Jesus come to you in many different forms, in many different ways, in many different places? We talk about, a lot of people feel alone and they feel lonely and they feel like no one's coming for them, but the church is always running after us. The church is always coming, the sacraments of healing, the sacraments. God wants you to live in freedom, as Scott said.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Great job, guys. That was a lovely Kerygma speed round. I love all of the answers, the beauty, the color, the redemption, the chasing. I love it. It's absolutely awesome. All right, so you guys meet by happenstance or not on this trip, and then you became married right away?
Yeah.
It wasn't far.
Really? I was joking.
4 months of dating.
Yeah.
8 months.
Wow.
Pretty quick.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of that. I think the shorter the dating relationship, the better, as long as you actually know who it is you're marrying. Yeah, that's beautiful. So you start dating for a few months, you get engaged, you are engaged for 8 months or so, you get married. Scott, did you say that you were a youth minister?
Yes, youth minister for 3 years, and I was at the Archdiocese of Indianapolis after that, and ended up as the director of youth ministry for the Archdiocese.
Okay, cool. And at what point were you like, enough of all this youth ministry, I want to make clothing? Like, what was? give me that story.
For people that have worked in ministry before, like a career in ministry is not always the most lucrative career path. And
accurate.
And we knew that going into it.
Well, I thought we were just gonna like live that life forever. Like that's where I was like, oh, okay, we'll be youth ministry, and you'll do NCYC every couple of years, and I was a nurse, and we'll just do this.
Yeah, we didn't really have any intention of changing that path, but we started. I've always had somewhat of an entrepreneurial mind, so whether that was in youth ministry as a professional, I didn't always color inside the lines. We did things differently. We thought differently, but I've always kind of thought that way. And I knew pretty quickly, doing some simple math as we were married and looking at the possibility of raising a family, we knew that we'd have to do something different in some capacity. So I was looking for, side gigs, things to help supplement income. And we had this idea of, well, what about Catholic socks? And
by we, he means him. Yeah. And I thought it was just a conversation and a joke on the way to Chicago. And he comes back and says, I have a design. I found someone to make them, because at this point we were not making them ourselves. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'd like to buy them and sell them at NCYC. Or we sold them. His mom and I sold them because he was working.
Yep.
So he had to do his actual job. We got some booth space and sold out in 8 hours, 5 hours.
That's amazing.
And so he's like, I let him buy half of them because that's what I do. I'm the brake pedal. I'm the no sayer. And we would have sold out of double that, if not more.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No,
do you guys need a moment?
No, we've talked through it.
We've moved through it.
That's a really incredible story that you just kind of have this passing notion and then you execute on it, and it's a ridiculous success on your first try. Said no one other than you. Right. That is, I mean, my trajectory is actually super similar, minus selling out of the socks. So I was in youth ministry, and then I kind of moved up in the different types of ministry that happen at a parish. And then eventually I was running the Office of Marriage and Family Life for the Diocese of Toledo. And, even as you kind of climb the ministry ladder, like, that doesn't mean you can, like, have a single income household comfortably. Those salary brackets are based on the presumption that both the husband and the wife are working full time. So, yes, we're Catholic, go have a bunch of kids, but you better both still go to work and none of you stay home with the kids. Yeah. Like, I don't get it. I think it's immoral, but it is what it is. The point is that I was in a similar position, taking up side gigs. I was producing music for people on the side. I was going around the country and speaking and doing, leading worship and stuff. And it got to a point where my wife sat me down and she was like, you got to choose. You can't do all of this. You can't keep doing this. And it was too much. And so we had to make that. Next morning, I submitted my resignation. And thus is AWAKEN Catholic. But like, we haven't sold out of the socks yet. So, if you would like to help us sell out of the socks, make sure to visit catholicmerch.store and you can buy the Uber Catholic hoodie like this one. Anyway, so back to your story. This incredible instance where this little passing notion you have manifests into this like radical success. I mean, how did you process that in the moment? Like, what did that feel like?
Well, I mean, it wasn't overnight. Like right now it feels huge, but I mean, we sold out that day and we said, okay, this is working. And we said, let's buy some more. And we said, that success turned into online sales success. And we said, well, let's buy a label printer instead of cutting them out of our inkjet printer. And for a long time, it grew. It didn't feel like it was huge. But if you look back on the course of our business, like it's a fast growing company, based on any company, not just a Catholic merchandise company. So
right.
There's definitely a lot of strategy that came along with it, but it was a grind too.
Sure. Mm-hmm. What was it like to go from, you're buying small batches of it, you're printing out of your home mm-hmm. printer. What was it like to go from that to being like the colossal behemoth that is now Sacrilegious? Like what did that take? Was it like someone reached out to you and said, hey, I can help you, inject this with success? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, we've never taken outside money or anything like that. It's definitely been a bootstrapped company, but we never got outside investments. We had a couple of people offer, but that's not something I was super interested in. But what we did get was an enormous amount of people that wanted to invest in us, and that's like us as people, not us as like a financial contributor. And there's people that just wanted to see us be successful because they thought what we were doing is cool and what the church needed in a unique and different way. And I leaned on mentors multiple times over the year to ask for help and ask for support and ask questions about making a real business and things like that. So
mm-hmm. I will say also it's taken a lot of courage because for a while I was still working as a nurse up until last year, a little over a year now. Mm-hmm. We made the decision for our family. But think about like going through the pandemic and going through all the when there were shipping containers just stuck places, like for him to have the courage to not only want to make socks and things here in the United States, to do it in Indianapolis, and the way you've navigated like bringing manufacturing here has been a really neat experience. I don't know. I think explaining that is really neat because we have some incredible talent and the knitting technicians that are employed here in different facets of what we do from every part of it. Like they have decades and decades of experience. Yeah. And I just think it's really interesting how the heck that happened.
Yeah. So a little bit of context. So we used to source our socks from overseas, and when the pandemic hit, we really saw the state of global logistics to be uncertain at best. Uh-huh. And we would see container ships being piled up in the port of Los Angeles for God knows how long, and we knew that we wanted to mitigate that risk. So we were just looking to shore up our manufacturing process. And there's a place in about 35 minutes away from where we live that has been a sock manufacturer. They do licenses for NFL teams and things like that.
Wow.
And we worked with them briefly when we first started, but we didn't really have the buying power at that point. So, right. And they got bought out by a private equity firm, and their lead time went from 12 weeks to 24 weeks, which was just out of the question for us at that time. So when we came back and we're trying to find a domestic manufacturer again, we reached back out to them, and they said, well, we're no longer, making them here. We just made that decision a few months ago. And I just said, wow, well, what happened to those machines and the people that worked on them? And we ended up I pulled every contact and string that I could to get to the right person, and I ended up meeting with their CEO and bought some of their machines. And now we employ 4 people that all they've done for the last 20 years is work in the knitting industry, and they didn't have a job in their trade anymore.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So now we have 10 knitting machines and 4 employees from that field, and own the vertical. So it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Wow. And so how do they feel going from like, making NFL socks and stuff to making Catholic socks? So I'm assuming that I wouldn't take for granted that they're all Catholic.
Yeah, they're not. And they also like travel a lot longer to get here than they did at their other job. But they loved what they did. Like, they loved making socks. And I think one unique thing also, and not to put anything down from the other company, but the other company was a behemoth. They had and it used to be more of like a punch in, punch out situation for them. And they come here and we're able to, really invest in them, and they're the experts in the field.
Yeah, we want to know from them how to make better things. Like they have that information, and so it's so cool to watch our creative team and like the technical team create and make something incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so that's the manufacturing side of it. So you still presently have 4 of them, right?
4 team members?
Yeah, doing that.
Yeah, we have 4 different people that specialize in knitting.
Okay. So you said that you made the first design.
Well,
but so you sort of did. Okay. What does that mean?
I like sketched out on a piece of paper, like, this is a little stick figure of JP2 with like a little, his crozier, and this is the pattern that I want. And then we just decided, that's probably not a good idea. And
okay. So who did you pursue initially when you weren't the colossal thing you are now how did you find the talent to create those designs initially?
Yeah, so Madison Cipoletti is our creative director, and she was working in the young adult office at the Archdiocese, and she went to, college for graphic design. So I knocked on the wall, and I said, "Hello, I would like to employ you to make this design for us." And we had like kind of an outline of the specifications, and she said, "Okay," and made it.
That's awesome.
Now she's been with us since the beginning. It's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say spiritually has been the best and the hardest parts of transitioning out of ministry in that sense, where you're, boots on the ground, evangelizing and all that entails, to now working more in this, merchandise industry that is a lot less boots on the ground evangelization? Like, what has that journey been transitioning, because you spent so much time doing it? Right. The best parts, the worst parts, and I want to hear that kind of from both of your perspectives.
Yeah. It's really difficult and really hard to leave a job that you love.
Yeah.
Like, I had just completed a master's degree that I hadn't paid for yet in church management, and like in pastoral studies, church management. That was the career path. There was no sign of us heading a different direction. And I truly loved going to work every day. I didn't feel like I went to work every day. But we realized that there was something here that we could not ignore. There was really, truly, like, the growth that we saw in our business, the conversations that we were having with people. We knew that this silly idea of Catholic socks had legs, no pun intended. It was going somewhere. And I was spending morning, lunch hour, and into the evening just maintaining the business, packing out orders, dealing with technology issues and everything in between. And it was either hire somebody full time to do it, or dive in full time myself. And we knew that was going to be a shot on if I needed to come back to a ministry career or things like that. But we took time, we prayed about it. It seemed like a long shot, but we knew that that's where we were being called to do. And yes, it's it's not necessarily boots on the ground evangelization, but there is some of that too. Like the fact that, you know, we've put out ads to sell more socks on, you know, Facebook and Instagram and everything else, but that is, you know, millions of impressions of us telling people about the lives of the saints. And like we get to be in the digital marketplace, in the town square where people are every day. And it's different, but it's where people are. And it's a way that we can sustainably do that. And, you know, we're not the ones doing the evangelization, but we're giving people the tools to do it well. And we know people that, you know, have, you know, wear their socks when they are getting their cancer treatments. We know people that have worn our socks when they've gotten married, and we know people that have worn our socks when they've been buried. And there's like, that's a huge span because people want to be close to the lives of the saints. People want to walk that journey of faith, and it's just giving them more tools to do that well.
Yeah. Wow. That's actually super, super cool. And I love the emphasis on that versus just like, oh, here's a cool product that will make us money. You know, like you're putting a lot more thought and heart behind it. And I think likely based on everything you just explained, really making an impact. And even just from what I shared before, like when I wear the socks, it's a conversation starter. It makes an impact, even if I don't see the end of that impact.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. So you were talking about the equity firm that purchased the sock manufacturing company and the transitions that happened there. You ended up taking on their employees and their machines. One of the other things that they did away with when they kind of eliminated that part of what they did there is they got rid of the Catholic Weird Stuff segment. And that, based on what you were telling me before we started recording, I think that is just incredibly problematic, and it's really doing a disservice to everyone involved. And so I think it's going to be really important for us to bring that back. So Ethan, hit it.
Catholic Weird Stuff. Why do they do the things that they do? Let's learn some Catholic Weird Stuff. It's super weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Catholic Weird Stuff segment. Today, our guests, Scott and Elisabeth Williams, have chosen to talk to us about dead people. No, really, what we're going to talk about is when a Catholic dies, you know, some especially special people that die go through something that's called a canonization process. And sometimes we end up with relics of their body parts. And all of these things can be pretty weird. So let's hear about it. Scott and Elisabeth, talk to us. Talk to us about dead people.
Yeah, we think it's a little weird. So, I was just down in Chattanooga last weekend, and I went there's a basilica there, and they have these massive reliquaries with all these different relics. I was sitting in the back of the church, but I'm pretty sure there's hundreds there. There's also a servant of God that they exhumed his body. So I think you die, and then if you lived a holy life, you go through this canonization process. During that time, you're typically buried. But if you have a cause opened, I don't know at what point, like they exhume your body from the ground because they want to check whether or not you're incorrupt, right? Whose job is that? And
who do you call to get that completed?
So, like, I think that part's weird. And then they move him to a church, which he or she, I shouldn't say him, the one that was at this church was
that's fair.
So he was in a church then, and then now he's just there, which, like, that's all good. But then if you become canonized, then you get to, like, venerate the relics, but then they'll, like, cut the body up in a gazillion pieces, ship it around the world, and I find that to be a little odd. I don't think we do that much now, but Elisabeth and I decided that we're going to put it in our will that if we die...
Not to be too presumptuous, but, like, our goal is to become saints.
The goal is sainthood, but we would like to stay together as one body.
Person, preferably together at some point, but...
We're gonna have to talk to the people over at My Catholic Will and have them develop like a cookie cutter, accommodation for that concern.
Yeah.
In the case of canonization, do not chop me up.
Please. You can take some of my hair, and that can be, but let's leave the body together. And like the other thing I think's weird, like the teaching on cremation is like it's permitted, right? But they say like all the ashes need to stay together and they need to, be buried or put in, I forget what that's called that you put it in.
An urn.
An urn. But if you're a saint, then we can just, you're not supposed to spread your ashes, but if you're a saint, we can just
chop.
Yeah. That's my weird.
Yeah. So it's such an interesting thing because it looks like contradictions. It looks like, wait a second. Well, and even just the notion of cremation, like it is so widespread, this notion that it is not to be done. When there is truth to that, but there's also truth that there are circumstances in which we can't cremate. And why are we even making a big fuss of this when we're over here chopping up our holy people? This perceived inconsistency, is really getting at this notion of the heart, which is really not that different than most things in life. It really gets into the heart of the reason we do the things that we do. So, for example, I can take the trash out because I love my wife. I can sometimes end up not taking the trash out. Now, there are two different reasons that it might happen that I didn't take the trash out. Reason number one, it didn't occur to me. I just didn't think of it. My mind was on other things. A far less egregious sin than reason number two. I see it there and I'm just like, nah, she'll take care of it. In either case, it's unfortunate that I didn't take the trash out, but there's one that's a lot more egregious, and it's the intentionality behind the act. And so some people, when they incinerate and they turn the body to ashes, there's this disregard for the reality of the resurrection. There's almost this like flippant, my body was just this shell, this little flesh suit that I had to wear during my time where my spirit was here on earth. And this is a very flawed way of thinking of the world, but it is a rampant way of thinking of the world. Mm-hmm. The Catholic worldview is that our bodies are a part of what makes us us. Our bodies are not just some, like I said, flesh suit that we inhabit. It is actually a part of what makes us human. In all of creation, as we know it, as what was told to us in the book of Genesis and throughout the thousands of years of tradition, human beings are in all of creation the only thing that is both spirit and material. Right? So we have the angels in heaven, and we have here on earth the plants and animals, these material things, these material beings. But only in humanity do we have the spirit and the material. And it is not that humanity is spirit that like has some material attached to it, like glued onto it. Mm-hmm. No. Humanity is spirit and material in a completely cohesive way. And they aren't two separate realities. They are one reality. And that's what makes us human. And so this utter disregard that the secular world has for the physical body, and let's face it, there's a lot of reason for this, right? Like a lot of us don't like our bodies. A lot of us look down and we're like, dang it, still, why can't I just magically have a six pack? And then there's other people who have very deep-seated wounds about their body from trauma or who knows what. Sure. But a lot of us just downright don't associate with our bodies. In fact, we disassociate from our bodies and we look forward to the opportunity to be freed from it. And this is all counter to the gospel. This is all counter to the truth, which is that there is a resurrection, and the resurrection that Jesus put on display for us is a foreshadowing of what we too will experience on the last day when the dead are raised and we are reunited with our bodies and we go to heaven, the new heaven and new earth in our new glorified bodies. I'm not going to have like a version 2.0 that's like a new model of my body. It will be my body as it is now, but glorified, just as Christ, when he was resurrected, had his wounds. And so we permit in the Catholic Church cremation when there are good reasons for it, whether it's that there isn't enough space for regular burials in a certain area, but the key is that we are not essentially, forgive my crassness here, but as long as we're not flipping the bird to God in our desire to cremate, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's all about respecting what God gave us and respecting our ultimate destiny, and really anticipating and looking forward to it with excitement. And so when we're chopping up our saints, there's so much, there are so many instances in Scripture where even the dead body of a holy person caused miraculous things. There's instances of that in the Old Testament. There's instances of that in the New Testament, and it goes all the way back to the early church. The early Christians who were being martyred and it was illegal to be Christian. These people were walking around wearing on their person, wearing relics of their martyred loved ones, as a way of connecting and remaining in communion with them who are now in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much history here. There's so much beauty here. It is a really fascinating thing. And it's hard for us. And I know, Elisabeth, you are a hospice nurse, right?
I am.
Like, you're around death and the anticipation of death all the time. What is that like?
It's quite interesting. And it's interesting that I'm now a mom. We've got 2 kids and 1 on the way. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And learning how like birth and death and those things are much more related than not related. So that's been a really, really interesting thing, becoming a mom as I'm like doing that work. But honestly, we don't as a society know how to die.
Wow. That's so deep.
And it's one of the only things that we're all going to do. And so a lot of what I've seen with the sacraments, there's much more peace, or there's much more, I don't want to say depth to the journey, because everyone has depth to their journey, but there's a lot more respite on the journey in faith.
Yes.
Than without it. And when you, just like in labor, just when you like avoid contractions, or you avoid the waves that come, avoiding that in death brings like unrest. It brings grief, it brings strife, it brings fear, not only to the person experiencing it, who sometimes can and sometimes cannot communicate that. It is felt in the room. I've personally felt it. It's hard as a nurse when you are accompanying people. You don't always know what is ordered and what is grief in a different way coming at you.
Sure.
So that's taken a lot of personal discernment.
And when you say that grief coming at you in a different way, you mean like a disordered grief or
yes,
something that isn't healthy.
Yes, or whether that's anger can be healthy, but if it's directed in the wrong way, or it's not understood where it's coming from, it can often, this is just personally, but can often come to the caregivers of like, you did this or that, or if there's blame, or if there's shame, or if there's regret, oftentimes that can be misplaced. And so it's interesting. People don't know how to necessarily hold their feelings and just be with them or identify what those are. We've got a 4-year-old that and myself as however old I am, trying to figure out like, what am I feeling at a certain time? So that's what we do a lot of, like accompanying with, like, I see this, I see that you're experiencing this right now. Like where is that coming from? So that's really helped me kind of process a lot of things, but just witnessing families going through that together has been a really beautiful and healing thing. And it's been a divisive and hurtful thing at different times.
And when you see the disordered examples of grief, where it's unhealthy and it's unconstructive and it brings unnecessary fear and despair and all this stuff, like, where do you think some of that comes from? Like, are there any consistent like correlations you can draw when you've encountered that?
A lot of it is, I don't completely know, but a lot of it is a regret. A lot of things that have happened or not been processed through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that presents itself in a really, in a way that to acknowledge that regret is a step forward through the journey, instead of like, you got that book, you can't go under it, you can't go around it, you've got to go through it. Is something that a lot of people are really afraid to acknowledge and to do. So when we've seen it done well, conversations happen, or even if the person can't, we say that hearing is the last sense to go. And we have seen people wait for people come in from the airport or wherever just to get at the bedside before, like someone will wait days and days for a relative to be at the bedside. And then, so there is awareness, there is hearing, there is, you just know when your family is all around you of who should be there. And so when those things are acknowledged and when those things are brought up, and there's a lot more healing and a lot more peace that can be visibly seen, so that, medications are helpful. I'm not going to say they're not, but sometimes we look to them first when the actual situation that's happening, something that needs to be brought up. Like it's a really scary experience. It can be isolating and lonely, but I mean, I've seen someone pass away with a smile on their face. Like, they're going into the arms of someone where they are truly known. You can see that and you can feel that. And I think that's what we all want, We don't know how to get there. We don't know how to die well. So that's
so powerful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. What you made me think of is actually what you brought up during the Charisma speed round, the sacraments, like the genius of the sacraments, the real power that there is for healing and redemption, where you don't have to live with regret anymore because it's been redeemed. It's been healed. And sometimes you can augment that, even if it's not part of the penance that's offered to you by the priest. You can augment that by directly apologizing to the people that you have hurt, or even to the people that have hurt you for carrying whatever resentment that you were carrying.
Right.
The sacraments are so genius and so beautiful and so powerful, and it is possible to be on your deathbed without regret and to be healed. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, guys. Before we dive in to our final segment of the show, where we're going to talk about the booming business, the parent company of Sacrilegious now, above it with its many subsidiaries. Before we get into it, I just want to tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, which is the trip to the Holy Land that we're taking later this year. If you would like to attend, if you would like to come with us on a journey to walk where our Lord Jesus Christ, blessed be his name, where he walked, performed miracles, where he was born, where he did all the awesome stuff that he did, and even where a lot of the Old Testament stuff happened. If you want to be there, which I highly recommend, I did it for the first time myself a couple years ago, and it was wow. Completely changed my life, and I am not exaggerating. You definitely want to consider coming with us. Visit awakenpilgrimages.com. It'll be led by myself and Father Eric Schild, who is the pastor of St. Joe's Parish in Maumee, Ohio. He's an amazing priest. We're going to have an amazing time. He's also a lot of fun. If you think I'm okay, you're going to love Father Eric. So check it out, awakenpilgrimages.com. All right. So, Scott and Elisabeth, we're going to be talking here about Catholic concepts. And I'm not just talking about concepts that are Catholic. I'm talking about Catholic concepts, the business that you started. What is this thing called Catholic concepts?
Yeah, so, I mean, we started out as Sacrilegious, and we kind of have a joke around here that if we started a Catholic tie company 10 years ago, we'd be out of business, right? So as Sacrilegious has grown, I mean, we have no desire, no plan of socks going off of our radar, but we did want to continue to grow that market. We realized that there was so much creativity, so much talent, and so much opportunity that the people in our organization have, that we needed a new name for us to be able to grow, because Sacrilegious kind of puts us in this box of the sock company, right? So Catholic Concepts was born to be the parent company, if you will, of Sacrilegious, and we've added a few other brands that serve specific areas in the Catholic sphere as well.
Very cool. So talk to me about what those are and why you started them.
Yeah. So the first one after that was called statesoffaith.com. And States of Faith is basically, where are you from? What state?
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio. So does anybody in Ohio ever wear like the shape of Ohio on their shirt and it says like home or something like that?
I think I have seen it. Yes.
Sorry, you're familiar. So we took that same concept, but we outlined every state in the rosary. So there's an outline with 53 or 50 beads on it, whatever it is. And there's kind of two elements to it. Like one, we want to give people merchandise and an opportunity to both express and be proud of the state that they live in, but also their faith, and to be able to surround their state in prayer. And so basically the cross section of people that love where they're from and love the rosary.
That's an epic idea.
And you can actually use the shirt or whatever, the mug, the sweatshirt, as my rosary broke and I was looking around, what was I going to do? I mean, you could use your fingers, which is also a genius, but you could use the shirt to follow along. So that was pretty neat.
That's great. I love that.
But it's like, I don't know, I kind of compare it to, you go to your favorite brewery and there's a cool collection of hip stuff.
Yeah, we like the hip stuff.
Yeah. But
that's awesome.
Nicer stuff.
So that's States of Faith.
Yep.
So tell me about Live Liturgically.
Yeah, so liveliturgically.com. It's a single product site right now. We do have some plans to grow that a little bit. Do you want to explain this one?
We're really excited about it. It stands as a wall planner, a family wall planner right now, and it helps blend the chaos of family life and schedules with the rhythm of the church in its seasons and its feast days, in its joys and sorrows, and as it ebbs and flows, so does our family. So how do we blend the two together and live in a more cohesive but also more ordered way? There are seasons of rest. Like on Sunday, we have the gospel passage, the what am I trying to say? The gospel passage, then we have the word rest. And that's all we really have on that day. And then we have a quote from the gospel to kind of guide the week, that you can reference. And then there's to-do lists and a store list, just like anyone would need. But also there's a gratitude list and a prayer intention list, so that when you're looking up, what am I going to, whose feast day is it on Thursday? You also can see like who do I need to be remembering on this day? Is it somebody's birthday, their baptism day? Is it somebody's like having surgery? Like there's room for all of those things, but also like we need to get this person to soccer practice, and like dinner's going to be out this night, or what's dinner on Friday, like all those things.
But what it does is it also like adds intentionality to your week. And that's what we were really missing, because this isn't going to replace like your family Google Calendar or however like you're currently, organizing your life. But the way that we use it and the way that it's intended to use, not to say that you can't do it a different way, is we sit down at the beginning of the week and we look through our week and we pray and we ask God to be present in that. We look at the feast days that are that week on the wall planner, and we try to figure out a way to, be grateful for the things that have happened the past week, add intentions for the things that we need coming up, and to plan the craziness of our family life within the rhythms of the church.
That is so amazing. I love the practicality of it and the how applicable it is to every household. I mean, even if you don't have kids, like if you're single, there's relevance to utilizing something like that. I can see for my wife Alina and I, like we have kind of informally done something along those lines at the beginning of the week, but we've never had like a tool like what you're talking about to concretely, work with. So that's really, really exciting. I love that. And folks, the makers of the product themselves are using it, so it's good. All right. Talk to us about 4 Marks Printing.
Yeah. So, we talked about manufacturing before, and we've really integrated that into the majority of what we do. So we have, right above me where we're sitting here, there's a automatic screen printing press. We have sublimation. We have all these different tools to make merchandise and products at a really scaled version of that. We can make them fast because we're a very seasonal business and we need that capacity in the fourth quarter around Christmas time. But the rest of the year, it's not as busy. And so Four Marks Printing is specifically a print shop for Catholic churches, schools, apostolates, you name it, to make apparel and gear so that whether it's their retreat t-shirts or their school Spirit Day stuff, you name it, we make it here. And you and I know from working at a parish that sometimes it takes Susie, the parish secretary that's cutting checks 2 or 3 weeks to process a check run. Not every print shop's going to get that, and they usually ask you to pay in front before everything comes. And we understand the pain points that exist in ministry, and we try to remove as many of those as possible so that people can get back to doing what they really signed up in ministry to do, which is to work in ministry, not all the bull that comes along with apparel and printing and things like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the focus on not only the focus of like making that stuff for Catholic organizations, but doing it, understanding their dynamics and meeting them where they're at with that. That's really cool because you're right. Nobody else is doing that. And the moment you guys add drop shipping to it, then we'll become customers too.
There you
go. Talk to us about All Set for Sunday.
Yeah, All Set for Sunday is a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics to be a little bit more prepared for Sunday Mass. So that's what we say at the beginning of every show. That's why I got it down so good. But it's essentially myself and our chief operating officer and one of my best friends, Jeff. We sit down and we invite one of our priest friends into the conversation. And we do what we call the 2-minute drill of the readings. We kind of briefly go over the first and second reading, and then we read the gospel in its entirety. And then we have a conversation with the priest about what he plans on preaching about that weekend. So think about kind of giving a general outline or part of the homily, but me and Jeff just like raise our hands and ask questions and poke holes in it. And there's a fun little dynamic. It's lighthearted. But essentially, we have young kids, and depending on their temperament that week, we could hear anywhere between 10% to 75% of the homily typically. Mm-hmm. And this is a podcast for people to fill in the dots of what they missed.
Amen. That is a very needed and welcome thing. That's awesome. Yeah, the struggle is real, man. When you're, especially with newborns, they just like, now is a perfectly good time to have a meltdown, and it's like the homily or the consecration.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. That is the struggle is real. The struggle is real. Well, that's super super cool. I love that. What day of the week does that come out?
Whenever we get it done.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
It's not as professional as AWAKEN Catholic. And
oh, please. Listen, we do our best, but I would not, I think you overspoke there. All right, guys, is there anything else you want people to know about? Where can people find you? Tell us.
Yeah, CatholicConcepts.com is kind of the holding tank of, if you want to find all the stuff, it'll point you in the right direction. All the other domains are basically what they're called. And we're all over the social medias and all that kind of good stuff. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you have any custom projects, or if you just want some good old-fashioned, wonderful Catholic socks. This is our Easter sock. Ooh. Right here. This is one of my favorite ones we've ever made, I think. It's pretty darn cool. This is the Easter Vigil sock. Can I run you through it real quick?
Yeah, please do. I see the Easter candle on the front, right?
We got the fire at the bottom. We got the Paschal candle here. And then if you're familiar with the Easter Vigil, there's a point where like people pass the light around. Mm-hmm. And so from the Easter candles, it's all passed around. Some of them are unlit or lit. And then the back says the light of Christ. So that's our Easter Vigil sock.
That is a great sock. I would love me a pair of them. That is super cool. I love the stuff that you guys are pumping out. You're doing so much good work for the kingdom. And I hope that the Lord continues to bless what you guys are doing, truly. And also, thank you for being on the show today. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
A lot of fun.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to include links for all you viewers and listeners in the show description, the episode description, links to all of the things, SOC religious and Catholic concepts and all the jazz. And please do support the work that they are doing, and you will look all the better for it. I have been Nick. This has been a blast, guys. I hope that we get to meet in person sometime.
Yeah.
And how far along are you, Elisabeth?
Really close.
Really close. Okay.
In March.
Yep.
Oh, wow. You are close. Okay. Well, please, listeners, viewers, pray for Elisabeth and her baby. And guys, this has been a blast. Viewers and listeners, before you go, I just need you to know that Jesus loves you. Peace.